Two things are forbidden. The first is the Cero, which only the Espada employ, and the other is the release by the Espadas beyond the Cero. Both are so powerful that they could destroy. Hello everyone, welcome in today's video. In this video, we'll be looking at the power of the Espada, or more accurately, we'll be just looking at the feat performed, or can be performed, by any member of the Espada, and that is the complete destruction of Las Noches. Would it be by using a Cero, or if you're rank 4 or higher, just by transforming? Let's first take a careful look at the wording we're given for the two examples of destroying Las Noches. The first thing we observe is that both contexts are destroying the entirety of Las Noches, meaning that we do need to find the full size of Las Noches. However, the method of which they are destroyed is different for each of them, one of them being using a Cero and one of them being transforming. This means they'll have slightly different calculation methods, which we'll talk about just in a second. We'll probably start off with the method of destroying Las Noches using a Cero, since it applies to all of the Espada. I'm going to build a 3D representation because why not? We start off with this statement from Nell, saying that it would take 3 days to walk to the front gate of Las Noches. Now, looking at a chart of the average walk speed for people of a prime youth and seeing the different ranges, we can say the average walk speed is about 1.382 meters per second, meaning this 3-day walk, which would take 259,000 seconds, would include a distance of 358,000 meters. However, this is only the distance from the corner to the front gate, which is only half of the front of Las Noches, meaning the entire front of Las Noches would be over 700,000 meters. From most scenes we see of Las Noches and all of the anime scenes, we say that Las Noches is square. From what we can say from that is that the area of Las Noches at the bottom would be 513 billion square meters. Converting that into square kilometers, we can see it's approximately the same area of that of Spain, a decently large country. Las Noches is more than just a flat country, it is an entire building, so we're going to need exactly how big Las Noches is height-wise to be able to determine its volume. To do that, we're going to use the picture in the background. Doing some basic pixel scaling, we can say that the front length of Las Noches is 353 pixels, making the height of Las Noches 143 pixels, or the equivalent of 290,000 meters. This gives an internal volume that is absolutely gigantic. I'm not going to say what it is in meters, but instead it is 150 million cubic kilometers. Now let's do the next step and work out how heavy and large Las Noches is. We can do this by using the scene where we see Ukura's blast, and we can actually see the thickness of Las Noches. So if we say that about half of Las Noches is 378 pixels, the thickness of Las Noches is 22 pixels. That may not sound like much, but because of how large Las Noches is, that thickness is over 20,000 meters. This gives the volume of rock to be a lot smaller than the internal volume of the entirety of Las Noches, at only 26 million cubic kilometers, which is still very large. Using the average rock density, we can then conclude that the mass of Las Noches is approximately 72 quintillion kilograms, which is about 89,000 times the mass of Mount Everest. Let's start the energy calculations. Based on when we see some attacks hit Las Noches, and we see that parts of it have been vaporized, and a statement from Rukia that Ceros in general seem to leave nothing behind, we can say that Ceros, and especially the strongest of Ceros, the Cero, would be able to vaporize materials it interacts with. So we'll be using the vaporization standard of 25,700 joules per cubic centimeter. This gives two different ends, based on if we're destroying all the rock of Las Noches, or if we're destroying the entirety of the volume of Las Noches. These two ends are absolutely gigantic. If we were to give a comparison with something like I've shown in my most popular video, my Garu video, we would say that the lowest calculation would be greater than anything performed by that of Merged Psychos from One Punch Man. This is incredibly impressive, but it actually is more impressive when we look at the Cero used by Grimjow, which is at a similar volume to Lost Noches, because as you see in the Cero, it very clearly contains the entire volume, so the correct amount to use is the entire volume of Lost Noches, meaning that very easily the Espada would be at a multi-continental level of power. One thing to consider is the size of Lost Noches and how heavy it is. Lost Noches is a very large building and is very heavy, as we have already mentioned in this video. This makes you wonder, is there actually a building material, a rocky one, that could actually be used to build Lost Noches? So, let's do a little example. We're going to use the example of the strongest concrete that I could find at 70 megapascals or 70 million pascals. Based on the area at the bottom of Lost Noches, which would be supporting the entire weight, we would say that the pressure that the bottom of Lost Noches would be experiencing is actually 1.8 billion pascals, or 27.5 times stronger than the strongest concrete I could find. We actually do already know of a material in Bleach called seke, which is used for constructions of extremely large buildings, like the Cerote. However, we also know that Lost Noches is not made of that, so while it may not be as durable as seke, we already know of an inverse material that is harder than normal, so it's not that far-fetched to say Lost Noches is stronger based on another material. Using the revelation that Lost Noches is more durable than a normal rock, and because we're basing it off concrete, we start off with the concrete vaporization a bit below average at 5,000 joules per cubic centimeter, but Lost Noches wall, being much more durable, is at 136,000 joules. This means we can then get much higher levels for the vaporization of all the rock of Lost Noches, or the vaporization of the entire volume of Lost Noches. I don't have a good comparison for how big these numbers are, they're both multi-continental, but if we were to put it in tons of TNT, the lower bound is 855 petatons, and the higher bound is 4.86 exatons. As always, in the last one, I said my recommendation was that Grimjow's blast clearly showed it was vaporizing the entire volume, not just the rocks inside, meaning that we should suggest that we use the higher end of 4.86 exatons. However, we are still not done. If you remember from earlier in the video, we talked about there are two different ways of destroying Lost Noches. All we have talked about so far is the destruction of Lost Noches using a Grand Ray Cero. We need to talk about the destruction of Lost Noches using, well, one of the top 4 Espada transforming. To do this, we'll be using the 3D diagonal distance from the center of Lost Noches to the very edge. Then we're going to use the standard explosion equation that is normally used for a building. However, while we normally use bars of 1.37 bars, because Lost Noches is 25.7 times stronger than normal, we'll actually be using 35.46 bars. Doing this, we can get the energy for destroying Lost Noches by one of the top 4 Espada transforming to be 861 teratons, which by comparison is close to the energy that would be the meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs. Thank you all for watching this video. When making this video, I requested the help of the Bleach lads in my server, so thank you to all of the Bleach people in my server who were able to help me out. If you want to join the Discord server, there will be a link in the description. If it doesn't work, please let me know. Sometimes something goes wrong. If you want to check out other great power scalers, do look in the description of this video. I've got a list of them, such as my pals Korin and Captain Forst. They upload more regularly than I do. And with that, check out my other content, and I hope you all have a good day. Thank you all for watching.